Talismans. The biggest magicians could not understand killing a million women. Black magic, self-murder, sorcery and talismans. One touch of this book will end your life in an instant. Different books led to everyone who approached her to die. Arsenic, poisons, fast methods of death. Internationally forbidden historical books inside which there are magic recipes to kill the soul and others. The most dangerous 5 internationally forbidden books. Your imagination is so much that you feel that you are traveling with places. What comes to your mind means it is possible. If you read a book you imagine that you are actually traveling to Italy. Some people will not read Bischoff's book, in itself a terrible development and creativity. These books are considered one of the most dangerous books in history, and one of these books is The Hammer of Witches, a book that deals with the subject of witch trials occurring in the Middle Ages. It's to refute the systematic arguments that claim that magic does not exist and respond to those who doubt the existence of magic and pray that witches are usually informing the judges of the procedures that enable them to find and convict witches. This ominous book was written by the Catholic author Heinrich Kramer in 1486 in Germany and quickly spread writers for England and the rest of Europe, all of them. This book incites contempt for women in particular. And magic is special for women because they consider them imperfect creatures created from a serpentine rib, and this book collects the topics of witches that were in the Middle Ages, and no matter how much they do not believe in the of magic, most witches kill women, because this book helps to kill women and torture them in brutal ways, and the book is one of the most dangerous intellectual books. This is the blackest thing written by the hand of a man who killed more than 250,000 women who shed their blood in the name of this book, and he burned them in the name of this book, or he is a demon who wrote it, dressed in his priest's cloak and called himself Heinrich Kramer, and brought out evil to us wrapped in the cover, fainting hearts and eyes. Nothing is said about this book, except that it is an abomination of the work of Satan, trying to consolidate ideas that have any basis. All of them are perverted. The book is divided into 3 parts. The first part talks about the devil and the witches of the Lord. The second part is about the way of working and writing magic, writing scary tales about witches and their killing of infants, and after they kill the children, they take out their hearts and mix them with the wings of bats until they are in the Middle Ages. They used to eat bats and drink a drink called love nectar from them, and after they drink this drink, the men drink it so that they can control them. As for the third part of the book explains the punishments and how the way in which they identify suspected witches was in a strange test for the accused. The test is that the accused of her 2 men are tied to a stone and tie her hands and throw her into the river, and if she floated over the river, she drowned. She remains a witch. And here we are talking about the book that follows, the Book of the Ascetic or Necronomicon, and this book talks about black magic and ancient civilizations, which are demonic and human civilizations. On their word means they were inhabited by jinn before humans, and this book talks about the most dangerous demonic civilizations. The book teaches you how to communicate with creatures by means of black magic. And in many people, in short, this book is dangerous to the point that it is the death of the author of the book himself. And the meaning of the word in the Arabic language is the sounds of insects at night. The author of this book is an Arab poet from Sana'a named Abdullah al-Harad, and he was known as the Crazy Arab because he was telling them stories in which strange and crazy ideas, because he believed that he could communicate with the creatures that lived on the planet. Because he the earth before man came. The creatures he was referring to are the demonic creatures and the jinn kings who existed on a time before man, according to his words, and he was trying to communicate with them because he knows the history of mankind and the things lost in history, and he sat 10 years in the desert alone and wrote this book. He said that he met strange creatures of the jinn and described them accurately. And the most dangerous thing is that he painted them in their real forms, and the book contains talismans and incomprehensible needs. It is said that these are the languages of the jinn. He said that he was destined to learn their language and use the magical power of the underworld so that the kings of the jinn would make fun of every mentioned author in his book. The play that consists of 7 parts of the pages are 900 pages. And the strange thing about it is that Abdullah's ending was strange and terrifying, that when he used the magic that he talks about in a bad way, they punished a very terrible punishment. A strange being appeared in the middle of people, and this being appeared out of nowhere, and its shape was huge and terrifying, and its face was very ugly. Attacked Abdullah band and cut off the small parts and took the rest with him and disappeared. After the book was translated into Greek by Theodore Philadas and took the name of Necronomicon from then on. This copy was burned by Patriarch Michael I in 1050, after which the book was translated from Greek into Latin by Aulas and Romias, and it seems that the news of the book reached him while working at the Inquisition, but Pope Gregory IX banned the book and ordered the burning of the Greek and Latin copies in 1232. According to Lovecraft, the Latin version reappeared in the 15th century in Germany, the 17th century in Spain, and the Greek version appeared in the 16th century in Italy. It is believed that the magician John Dee translated the book into English, but Lovecraft said that the book was never printed. Some claim that there is only one copy left in the Vatican Library. As for the Arabic version, it completely disappeared from existence at the time when the Greek version of the book was banned, as Idris Shah searched for it in all Arabic and Indian libraries and found no trace of it. Lovecraft states that the Arabic version of the book appeared in the 20th century in San Francisco, but was later burned. It is said that the book was probably translated into Hebrew in 1664 by Nathan of Gaza and was called Sefer Hazari Hadith, i.e. the Book of the Gates of Knowledge. It was stressed by the Church that whoever owns a copy of this book is executed immediately and all copies are burned, although there are leaked copies, but there is a monk who tried to steal a copy of the book from the Vatican Library and discovered the matter and sentenced to death, and after the monk did not disappear with the copy of the book, however, translated copies. The book that follows combines good and evil at the same time is a book by the American writer and chemist Dr. Robert C. Kids that was corrupted in 1863. Maybe you find this speech irrational, or you may ridicule the speech and think that it's just exaggerated words, or the possibility that you think that it's a book of witchcraft and sorcery and a kind of quackery, and these books, if you get sick or get any kind of disease, it is an inevitable death. And the reason for this is that the author of this book put arsenic on all the pages of the book, and in case of touching or smelling arsenic will die immediately. For this reason it was forbidden to approach this book or touch this book. There are only 2 copies of it in the world, and it is entitled Shadows of the Walls of Death. In addition to it consists of 87 pages. It is located in the United States of America in the Michigan Library, and it is forbidden to read or approach anyone without taking certain steps to protect his life from death. 1000 in the year 1863. This book is considered the most dangerous books in the world, because they called it the deadly book. 1000 Robert of this book has 100 copies, but what remains of them are only 2 copies kept in a special section away from readers. It is forbidden for anyone to approach writing even in order to preserve it. Is a very ordinary book, but almost took advantage of scientific knowledge. So he put on all the pages of the book 86 pages on the idea of a book designed from wallpaper, a group and named after celebrities and the purpose of it, or even to preserve his life, of course, how to touch him, for sure they have special equipment, this speech, and no, at that time, this poison was considered the best poison for murder and assassination. And the justification of the author of this book is that he is a professor of chemistry with 2 degrees in chemistry and medicine, and he worked in the field of medicine for 11 years and was a surgeon during the American Civil War, and when he reached the age of 40, it meant the length of his studies and the violin. He was distinguished among all the teachers around him. He was familiar and aware of the polluting substances that affect the environment and human health, he thought. Only these 2 copies were kept, and they wrapped every page of the book very carefully so as not to leak. The birth of a book called Euthanasia. This book consolidates the idea of suicide in people whose souls are weak in a dangerous way. 1000 of the year 1894. And the strange thing about the subject is the number of people who read this book committed suicide, and the reason for suicide is because the book mentions many details about the methods of suicide, means the recipe with an increased dose of Provini. After which the book was banned from all the world and websites. God Almighty says, and don't kill yourself, that God was merciful to you in some way, more merciful than he is concerned. Lissa is upset. The Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, says, one of you does not wish to die for the harm of an injury. If it is necessary to do so, let Allah say to me sometimes what life was good for me, and to die if death was good for me. Surely your punishment will be from Allah if you kill yourself. Philip Nimmo believes that the amazing scientific progress during the last 2 centuries seemed to herald an era when science could explain everything and would take away the meaning of every question about God. These heralds made science turn into a de-ideology known as scientism, and the questions posed by philosophy and religions about the origin of existence, life, values and morality were considered wrong and illegitimate questions. Honestly, The fifth books are all scary and terrifying books. The fifth book that we have is called the Book of Suiga, and it is also called Daria, is a Latin treatise from the 16th century about magic. The story of the book and the last book we have by the famous mathematician John de Wally. His life was combining reality and spiritual science, and he had a large library of books, an advisor to Queen Elizabeth I of England. How does he not know the decoding of those manuscripts that belong to this book? And a strange creature appeared to John, and John asked him about the book. They replied that this book is from the first era of humans on earth. And John, you terrible creature, you can translate the content of this book. The creature refused and said, this book to the commander-in-chief, what I can interfere with, and this book is an expression of John's mathematics research in London. And the last 36 pages in the book contain very powerful magic spells of black magic, and after John died, the book disappeared, and what appeared again? John's mathematics teacher in London, in 1994. The book, the original, then two manuscripts of the book appeared, one in the British office and the second in the University of Oxford in the Bodleian Library of Goundy, and was sold at auction in 1692, and the difference, there are two manuscripts left. A copy of the Bodley Library containing 197 pages and 36 tables of scattered letters, all are symbols that have no explanation, a British copy of 147 pages, and some of the researchers' works from the original Suija book, and these manuscripts and the titles in them are notes written by John for what he was always studying the book after hundreds of years have passed, because in the end, curiosity in science is required, but sometimes it can kill its owner.